Okay, good morning. So, today I'll be talking about the settlement process. Very important. So, in commodity exchange, how the settlement takes place. Because all these days we have learnt about the different angles from which the commodity exchanges work. So, we went through their regulatory norms. Uh, First and foremost thing, we need to understand about the various risks involved in these commodity exchanges. So there are risks like first one, credit risk. What is this credit risk? See, normally what happens in today's exchanges, right? The risk relating to credit is very less, unless and until it depends on the types of contract you are entering into. But what the exchanges have done today in order to meager or bring down this credit risk, there are well-formed clearinghouse system which has been developed. The to it that the parties to the contract doesn't default from the exchange today. Not a standardized contracts, but in case of future contracts and options and all those things, which earlier it was there, because of a lot of reforms which has taken place in the exchange market. So market risk is due to change in price, volatility in market, some embedded at the time of exchanges. Okay, this differs from one exchange to another. The margin is to minimize the risk price, especially due to changes in market. And since we know markets get impacted because of this change, so these or even stocks in derivatives, avoiding risk. That is, you are hedging basically that. So future you don't want to face some risky situation, because of that you are getting traded with these derivative products. So that is what you need to understand when you talk about derivatives. So when we talk about market risk, to minimize the market risk, there are a lot of margin things which has been try to minimize your risk through various margins. So one is mark to market, the other one is volatility margin, special margin, delivery margin. Like this, lot of margins are there. I'll come back to that once I discuss about the margin factors. That is also part of your syllabus. So when I come to that, I'll tell you about what is this margin all about. So even in option contracts also, contracts, because you know that it's an option. So on the day of expiry of the contract, whether the person may go for put option or a call option, or he may withstand that option also, because it's an option for him. So they are not sure whether the contract will take place. But you cannot just prolong for 3 months or 4 months without contract being getting materialized. You cannot push that like that. So in order to compensate for the loss, there is something called as the margin money, which needs to be shelled out at the time of entering into the contract. So the margin money is the money which will be a loss for the person, either of the person who is not willing to fulfill the contracts. That is the option contracts. So similarly here, since it's a little bit advanced form of contract, standardized contracts which are there, and the future contracts will happen. Okay, you cannot escape that. So there is no question of credit risk which is taking place here. So market risk is one factor which definitely will have impact on this particular future markets. That's why in order to minimize that market risk, so whenever there is a adverse movement of price, or that's a market risk which is there. So margins have been set up in order to cover that risk. So market risk is there in markets and that will be addressed through various margin. Then comes legal permitted by the regulatory frameworks. So you should be in a position to undeal what you enter into. So there are some clauses or provisions in various regulatory norms, which you should be in a position to understand before you enter into a contract. See, legal risk is one risk where ignorance cannot be ignored totally. That means ignorance to study that, understanding what are the terms of contract and what the term says and what are the understand. So anything legal which you are not able to establish or which you are not able to understand, then you are taking a huge risk on your front. So there are many clauses which are there, especially maybe product specific also, or commodity specific contracts will be there, or sometimes contract specifics will be there. Okay, so it cannot be a generalized. You cannot see all the contracts in the generalized manner. There will be some legality things which will be inculcated or incorporated in that particular legal in that particular contracts. So when you are entering into a contract with a party, especially for a commodity exchange type of contracts, you need to visualize the entire contract in terms of the context. Okay, so the substance of the contract is very important. So you need to understand in toto whether it are to be there in the contract, that is there or not. Okay, so especially in terms of settlement of the contract, okay, in terms of the genuine documentations which are required, or in terms of standardized commodities which have been stored. So yes, I need to know about those things, especially from legal points. So what the statutory norm says, or what the statutory minimum prescriptions are there according to law, right? Whether those things are not there, whether those things are inculcated in that, or whether the documentation what you are supposed to look into before you enter into a contract, whether that is clear from all the legal hurdles. So these are the things what you are supposed to know, and definitely there will be the chances of legal risk. Tomorrow you may end up with disputes, and that may go to various courts and all those things, and you may end up with wasting your investments and also wasting your energy and time because of the legal hurdles which resulted in the contract being not entertained properly by either of the parties. So legal risk is something which is a challenging one, and you should be very careful with that. Then operational risk, the next risk is operational risk. Operational risk is basically about when you are operating on your system, because I told you today the exchanges are driven through the system. So you will be accessing the requisite data, and you are booking the order, and you are doing all the trade online. So there may be something like a sudden failure of internet at your end, or there may be some electrical issues which were there with your computer, because of which you had logged into the screen, and suddenly that computer switched off at the time of booking the orders or something like that, or any other problems like that. Okay, see, operational things can be anything which is relating to how you operate with the system, especially. And since there is no physical interaction here in the market, it's all done through screen based and online mode. There are chances that you may punch in a wrong orders, or you may punch in wrong figures, and you may sometimes technology will not work properly. It may book wrong orders for you. Normally, even though there are a lot of controls which are there in place in system, there may be chances that the issues will be there because of your internet issues, or because of your uh, at the time of operating, or at the time of doing. So credit risk, I'll repeat, risk, operational risk, or it can be combination of any of these risks. What it means here. Okay, so then coming back to the agencies which are very important in this exchange. First and foremost thing is clearing house. Stock exchanges, stock related things. Okay, so what is the role of this clearinghouse agent, and what is the purpose of maintaining this clearinghouse agent? So when you ask this question, see, they do end-to-end activities. Okay, so they are just like connectors. Okay, because exchange, like you can trade with MCX or ICX or NCME, all those things, national commodity markets and all those things. You can trade with any exchange for that matter, but there should be someone who should represent you in all these exchanges. Broker's job is to only book orders, match the orders, and maintain the records of your transaction and communicate to you. Okay, that's what they do it. So broker doesn't have the scope or bandwidth, okay, to directly do interactions with the exchanges and try to regulate those some of the things which the markets want you to do it, and that cannot be done by a broker, because broker job is very much limited, and what is supposed to do is job is defined. Okay, but the settlement operations and how to convert the trade into a profitable one, all these things broker cannot do it. Okay, it's not a broker job to do all those things. He is just a person who is helping you out in terms of understanding the market, or in terms of educating you or creating awareness about the market, and is just hand holding you. That is, he is helping you instead of you directly going and trading. He is a party who stands in between the exchange and you, so that he can help you out in selecting of the orders and punching of the orders, or in giving you timely advisory of what to trade, what not to trade with, and at what price should. See, that is the role of broker. Broker job is very narrow, and scope is very limited there. So, but the operational front and settlement front, right? Whatever we call it as settlement of trade or operational part of how the exchanges should work, that will be linkage will be done through clearinghouse agents. So they are the specialist people, okay, who are again recognized by the exchanges, and they need to again take permission from SEBI. Okay, SEBI's permission is very important for all, and these clearinghouse agents consist of a lot of clearinghouse clearing house, actually it's a. So commodity clearing houses consist of expertised people and knowledgeable people who have a good reputed thing in dealing with exchanges. So they need to set up a company type of thing, and they need to take permission from exchange as well as from SEBI. Okay, they are the people who take permission from these two bodies to act as clearinghouse agents. So there are specific qualifications which are required, and there are also specific capital they need to introduce, and the experience, expertise, exposure. All these things are required in order to become a clearinghouse agent. So I and you cannot become a clearinghouse agent unless we have those qualification, experience, and all those things what they ask for. And this is subject to, again, they will be monitoring you. So SEBI and also the exchanges will be monitoring the functions and the role, how they are performing on this, and based on that, their services will be utilized, or else they will ask you to close the business, and they will not consider you as an agent once they close the license. So that's very important. So their role is to, in order to simplify, they are the people who will be recording the transactions for you. So all trade and trade related acts and third parties of all buy and sell transactions, everything get recorded by clearinghouse agents. Okay, that means basically they are the record repositories. They keep all the records, okay, of whatever the transactions are happening between a buyer and seller with the exchanges. So all exchange members must report all transactions. Okay, so what all transactions are there, and all exchange members who are all becoming the exchange members, they need to record their transaction to the clearing house after each day of trading. That's very important. So this record will be done through again an online mode is there, and that they need to provide this information. Okay, so information is passed on to this clearinghouse agents. So this is done on daily basis. So all the transactions which has taken place on that particular day, that needs to be communicated, because these are the people who will be helping in facilitating the smooth flow of exchanges. So buyer and sellers and the exchange, these are the three people who are there. So buyer also should not face difficulties, seller also should not face difficulties, exchange also should not face difficulties. So in order to see that all these people operate, gets aligned with whatever the objectives they are getting into business for, that needs to be ensured that it will happen on time, okay, without any hassle. So hassle-free type of support is what these clearinghouse agents are helping out. Okay, so in that process, what they ask, every day, whatever the trade is taking place or whatever the transactions are taking place, that needs to be communicated on day-to-day basis. So daily you need to keep record, informed the clearinghouse agents about all the transactions which has taken place on that particular day in that exchange. Okay, that needs to be informed to them. So here, please remember, clearinghouse agent only for those exchanges. So if I am a clearinghouse agent for MCX, Multi Commodity Exchange of India, then I expect all the trade which has taken place in that particular day in MCX exchange only, that needs to be communicated to me as a clearinghouse agent. That's what it's called. The next important thing is the clearinghouse that ensures financial settlement for each buyers and sellers. This is a very important function of a clearinghouse agent. They see that the settlement, that is financial settlement especially, takes place in a correct manner, because commodity settlement will be taking at warehouse level. We have discussed on that already, how the settlement takes place at warehouse level. So how the ownership of the goods get transferred and what are the documents, all those things, that we have discussed already. So clearinghouse agent will not go to warehouse and do the settlements there. Okay, that is commodity settlements will be done by warehouse. Okay, there are recognized people. We discussed about the agents who are there in that warehouse and all those things, right? So they will do the transaction. Here it is only financial transaction. Financial transaction, I told you, exchange of commodity or settlement of commodity can be either through settlement of commodity itself, physical commodity, or settlement through derived financial instruments. Okay, so you can do the settlement by keeping that particular commodity and converting into equivalent value of rupees. Okay, that can be taken as a base instrument. So commodity like bullion can be taken as a base instrument, and 1 billion I will enter into a contract today that for buying 1 billion after 3 months I will be paying so much. That means bullion is the instrument, okay, on which my contract price is derived. That's what it's called as derivative markets. So I am keeping bullion as my instrument, and that has been derived as an price. I am deriving that price of my derivative contracts, keeping this as a base instrument. Similarly, I can keep other commodities also, like rice, wheat, ragi, oil seeds, whatever it is. So I keep that as a base instrument, and based on this, I will keep my contract price. That's why it's called as derivatives. I am deriving the price of the contract based on some base instruments. Okay, the base instruments can be anything. It can be gold, it can be oil, it can be rice, or whatever commodity you want to keep that as a base, you keep it and derive your contract based on the price. Because I want to just see how the price of that particular commodity moves, and accordingly my financial transactions get settled. Okay, because every day there is a change in the fluctuation of the price of each and every commodity. So my contracts are derived on rice. Let us say rice, 100 bags of rice. That is my base. And I'm saying 100 bags of rice, I will today bet it at, let us say 60 rupees per kg. So 100 bags means 60 into 100, 6,000 rupees is what the contract I am entering into today. Telling that this is the brand of rice. On this brand of rice, I am entering into a spot price. Today the price was so much, and I am into a contract that 60 rupees may go up by 67 rupees in the next 3 months. That is my way of analyzing things, and I bet for that order. I say that any order which is matching my requirement of 65 rupees per kg after 3 months, I am ready to purchase that order. So what I'm doing here, I am placing an order for 65 rupees today. Okay, and I am taking that position for next 3 months. That is, after 3 months, I will be ready to pay you 65 rupees for the underlying asset, which value today is 60 rupees. That means 5 rupees is what I am telling you. So I'll punch an order. That order gets punched in the system, and there are some contracts which are getting at trading at 65 in the market. They say, okay, I am ready. There are a person who will be trading in the market. 1 second, just hold on, please hold on 1 second. Yeah, so 60 rupees is what today's price is, and I want to book an order for 65 rupees after 3 months. So what I do, I punch an order for 65 rupees. I say I am ready to buy 200 quintals or 300, whatever that is. I'll place my order. That is my requirement. And if there is any already existing contract which is available on that particular day, then the contract gets allotted to me, or else it goes and searches for any other contract which is matching your requirement. Accordingly, the order get matched. So this is how the system works. System works automatically. Okay, it works on the FIFO method, first in first out method, and the order gets matched based on the person who has first placed the order. So, or else if your order is, no one is there to make that order for you, that order continues over a period of time, and when the order comes and someone ready, some sellers are ready, or some buyers, if you are in a selling position, and if some buyers want to buy the contract, they will execute the contract at that point, and they will show their willingness to enter into a contract with you. Okay, since someone is willing to take at 65 rupees, there are sellers who are willing to sell it at 65 rupees after 3 months at the particular quantity of grade of commodity, whatever you have exchanged. So what happens? The order matches and the contract gets executed between you and them. That is, buyer and sellers execute the contract. So this settlement, what should happen on the day of the expiry of the contract, that is after 3 months at 65 rupees for let us say 500 kgs, what is the contract says, that clearinghouse agents take the responsibility to see that particular seller will sell that particular units of that money to him, and this particular buyer will execute the contract to buy that particular thing at 65 rupees. So this contract settlement can be financially settled, or it can be through commodity exchanges also. That is physical change of commodities. So the ultimate objective is that will be should be indicated at the time of entering into contract, whether it's a physical commodity you want to take, or is it only a financial exchanges what you are supposed to do, keeping this as an underlying asset. So that will be decided at the time of entering into the contract itself. Okay. So 3 days before the close of the contract, that is the expiry of the contract, the physical quantities needs to be shown and exchanged. Okay, then only the final settlement will happen on the expiry date. So I'll come back to that, how it happens and all. So this is how, in nutshell, how the exchanges help you in getting the transactions done for purchasing booking the orders and all. This booking the orders and all is done through demat account, and this is where broker roles are there. Okay, broker is a person who will be accessing the servers of the exchanges, and he will be helping you out, because you can't directly go to the servers of exchange and operate on this. So it will be routed through a broker. He will be taking your orders and he will be punching that orders for you. So you need to make payment to that through demat account. You need to pay the account, and they will settle the thing, and they'll charge the commission and all those things. So that is how things work. So this is very important. Financial settlement. So that is clearinghouse agent job is to make all the financial obligations between buyers and sellers. So right from the time of entering into the contract till the stage of final expiry and coming out of that contract, till that stage, whatever the financial transactions takes place between buyer and seller, it is done or routed through only clearinghouse agents. They are the people who will sit in between you and sellers, and they see that the trade takes place as per the terms and condition which was specified in the contract. That's very important. And they also ensure that participants keep cash deposit called margin with it. So whenever these buyers and sellers enter into the contract, right, the first and foremost thing is, in especially future contract, right, you need to keep the margin money. What is this margin? Normally 5 to 10% of your contract value will be called as margin money. So that depends on exchange to exchange. Again, I am not generalizing the statements here. I'm just telling you, it depends on the exchange. Okay, exchange can just charge 8%, 6%, 5%, 10%, all this, but it ranges within this bandwidth, 5 to 10%. So what is this? That is called as margin. Margin means, in order to make sure that you people, they honor the contract on that particular day, they want to see you, how serious are you in fulfilling the contract obligations. So in order to make sure that both the parties who are entering into contracts are in a position to maintain that particular obligation till the expiry of the contract. So they need to see that these people are serious. So in order to do that, at the time of entering into the contract itself, they will ask you to deposit some margin money. So who should deposit? Both buyer and seller of the contract. Both are supposed to deposit this margin money, and this margin money is defined as a percentage. So what is that percentage? The percentage is fixed by the exchange. Exchange fixes this percentage. It may range from 5 to 10%. So on what they are keeping margin? Margin is kept on the value of the contract. So what is that value of the contract? Let us say I am entering into a contract for 10,000 rupees. That is my value of the contract. On 10,000 rupees, I need to keep 10%. That is 1,000 rupees. Both buyer and seller should keep that money as margin money with the clearinghouse authorities. So first they need to deposit that money, because that is, they want to make sure that both parties have agreed and they are willing to honor that contract on that particular day. It shows their commitment to the contract. So to make sure that these people are serious and they are committed to the contract, the clearinghouse agencies expect you need to deposit the margin money, and this margin money is refundable. So once you are done with the contract, whatever the deposits you have kept, right, that will be refundable, or it can be even adjusted for the settlement money what you are doing. So at the time of final settlement, so whatever the money is to be paid by buyer to the seller, so at that point of time, they will deduct this money from the buyer, and the balance amount only they will ask you to settle it off. Okay. Or it can be that that money can be given to even in addition to what the buyer is paying the seller, right? In addition to that, they will also add whatever the seller had contributed at the time of entering into this margin requirement. So it's one way of, they will refund this money to both the parties at the time of expiration of the contract. That is, when the contract closes, this money is given back to them. So margin money is always refundable, and this money is something which you are collecting at the time of entering into contract to make sure that there is no default by both the parties to honor the contract. So in order to make sure that you are serious about the contract, you are willing to perform your duties in the contract, this money is asked, and this margin money can change from term to terms, okay, and from exchange to exchange. So the timing of margin money, when they want to ask, all those things again depends on the circumstances also. So it is the prerogative powers of the clearinghouse agent to go for asking for extra margin also. So there are different types of margin money. So I'll come back to that margin money afterwards. Okay. Now, so let me explain the process now. Once the contract is processed by the clearinghouse, the buyer and seller of the contract will have a contract with the clearinghouse. So initially, buyer and seller will get together at by booking the orders. Okay. So the first stage is broker comes. Okay. So there are two parties, buyers and seller, who are willing. One party is willing to buy, other party is willing to sell. So where is the how do they meet? They meet in exchange. Okay, both parties have demat account. They have created the commodity exchange demat account they have. So there is a depository who created this account for them. So they will be routed through that particular depositor's broker itself. They act as broker also. So what these people do, those people who are willing to enter into contract, first they punch the order. Okay, so I want to buy something. Okay, I'll punch the order. So broker takes the rest of the deal. He carries on the system for me. He tries to matches the order wherever it is existing. If it is not there, it will be in the queue. So whenever the order gets matched, the settlement you need to pay for that whatever the money you have agreed for at the terms of the contract. You need to do it. All those things you need to start doing it. So since derivative contracts are for 3 months, 4 months, you no need for you to pay the entire money at the time of entering into contract. So then you will be routed through clearinghouse agents. Okay, they are the people who will be further helping you out in carrying out the settlement of the transactions in an amicable way. So till that we are clear now. So as soon as the parties gets first registered with the broker, once they get demat account and all those things, then they will start booking the order. So once the order gets materialized, then they will be routed to clearinghouse agents. So they will now know to go to clearinghouse agents and they need to establish a contract with clearinghouse agents. Okay, so clearinghouse agent has some contractual norms or documentations. You need to fulfill that documentation and you need to just produce all the necessary documents to them, and the counterparties will now get into contract formally with clearinghouse agents. Okay, that is the next step. This ensures every reversal of future market position without a need of original party with which the contract was entered. Okay, so then another key element is the bank or network of banks through which money settlements are effected. So even this is also very important, because how the settlement takes place or who are the banks, because all the settlements takes place through a valid bank accounts. So even you need to tell about who are the valid bank details and IFSC codes, account numbers, all these things you need to share with the clearinghouse agent. And because when it comes to the question of mark to markets, M to M, right? So every day, whatever there is a profit or loss in that particular segment of products or commodities, whatever you have opted for, right? So that amount gets debited and credited to based on whether you suffered loss or whether you suffered gain. So if you suffered loss, it gets debited to your account. If you suffer gain, it gets credited to your account. So there they will ask you for the bank details, because the money gets directly taken into your bank account. It gets directly debited and credited to your bank account. So they ask you to even give the bank details also at the time of entering into the contract. That's what it means there. So an exchange clearinghouse may be an in-house department or a separate legal entity. So most of the big exchanges like MCX or NCME, all these things, right? ICEX and all those people, big exchanges, right? They have their own in-house clearinghouse agencies. Okay, they have their own in-house clearing agencies, and they get recognized with those particular exchanges, and the terms and conditions and all those things, functions, performance, and monitoring, everything is done on time to time basis by the exchange directly itself. Or there may be separate legal entities also. That means the exchange may take the help of clearinghouse agents which are not directly dealt with them. So they don't come under. That means these clearinghouse agents not only handle this MCX or ICX or something like that, even they cater to the needs of other exchanges also. That means they are not dedicated clearinghouse agents. That means in a legal entity, they will be given a role of to act as a clearinghouse agent, and they can act as a clearinghouse agent for many exchanges, not for only single exchanges. So in such cases, they have their own rule sets, and the exchanges needs to agree for the rules, and the terms and conditions, all those things will be set will be given at the time of entering into contract between that particular clearinghouse agents and the exchanges. So there are two things which can happen. In-house means the exchange itself having its own clearinghouse agency department or agency type of thing under it. So whatever the rules, regulations, terms and condition, whatever they want to pass, right, they will directly pass on to them. So they will be working dedicatedly based on whatever the exchange conveys to them. So that is one the big advantage of having an in-house exchange, in-house clearinghouse agents. So legal entity clearinghouse agents, they have taken permission from all the statutory authorities and Reserve Bank of India and all those things, sorry, SEBI and all. So their function is, they don't not only work for one particular exchange, they work for multiple exchanges. So 2-3 exchanges also they facilitate as clearinghouse agents, and in that process they will be agreeing for a common terms and conditions. So you cannot put a specific terms and condition, because they are not dealing only with your related trade, your exchange related trade. They do it with others also. So again, I'm repeating, each exchange has its own terms and conditions. Please remember that. So it depends upon which exchanges you are trading with. So depending upon the exchanges which you trade, right? So your terms and conditions also varies. So you should be very clear about when you are entering into a contract, which exchange and what are the terms and conditions. So you cannot generalize the terms and conditions here. Okay. So that you need to be clear with. Then clearinghouse acts as central counterparty to all trades on the exchange. I have discussed more on this. Clearinghouses counterparties are in clearing agents. So clearing agents, they are called. So who are clearing agents? Clearing agents are the person who does all the clearing activities for buyers and sellers. That is, who facilitate trade. They are called as clearing agents. Clearinghouse is a place where these agents come together and they settle the contracts. Okay. So let us understand what are the main functions. Main functions are financial and operational requirement for membership of the clearinghouse. Margin requirement designed to limit the buildup of exposure by periodically settling gains or loss. Closeout of positions in reaction to a default. Maintenance of clearinghouse resources to cover losses that exceeds the value of defaulting members' margin, and to provide liquidity during the time it takes to collect the value of margin. So in overall position of clearinghouse agents is, they are the main connectivity between the exchange and the parties to the contract, that is counterparties to the contract. So their job is to ensure and make sure that all the terms and conditions to the contract are fulfilled by both the parties, and the facilitate trade to take place smoothly without any difficulties, so that either of the parties should not get into credit risk or any types of risk. Okay, so they make sure that the exchange performs its duty of settling the contracts amicably. So that is the role of, in a simple thing, that's the role of clearinghouse agents. Okay, in that process they do lot of things, and what are the things they do? I'll just list out few of the things. You can just try to understand those things. The first one is about clearinghouse matches transactions, reconciles sales and purchases, and does daily settlements. So see the voluminous activity what they do. So they match the transaction. That is the first stage. So what is matching of the transactions? I told you, the orders, when the orders are placed, right, the orders gets matched based on the volume and the price at which you are willing to execute that contract. So there are parties who is willing to sell, there is party who is willing to buy, there is party who is willing to buy only so much volume at such a price, and there are parties who are willing to sell at particular volume at particular price. That means the market volatility is so much that you will have 1,000 types of contracts with different permutations and combinations of commodities, volumes, price, and all those things. So even day, year, months also. So some may be looking for 2 months contract, some may be looking for 45 days, some may be looking for 3 months, some may 6 months. See, there are various permutations and combinations on which the markets are available with. So how do you match this? How do you do this? This is very important. So that type of matching the transactions are done by clearinghouse agents. Then they don't only do that, they make sure that they have the trade, whatever has been done for that particular day, is matching with the contracts, whatever has been finalized on that particular day. That is called as reconciling the transactions. So they start doing the reconcile. How much order was placed, on what varieties of commodities were placed, at what volumes. So what was the timeline for executing that contract? What was the price of the contract at which it was valued? See, all these things, reconciliation will be done at the end of the day to see whether all the transactions which were in the queue has been correctly answered or not, or correctly or orders have been placed on that queue or not. So that type of reconciliation of transaction, that is relating to purchases, as well as settlement of reconciliation also will be done, that is sales. So that also will be done. And they make sure that whenever the contract matures on that particular day, the settlements are also carried out, and so that both the parties, whoever entered into contract, that is counterparties, in simple, buyers and sellers, so are their settlement has been done, so that they don't have any outstanding balances left, or they have any issues left with the exchange. So they make sure that they exit the exchange with a happy mood, with settlement taking place at a proper manner. So that is the role of your clearinghouse agents. The second important, responsible for risk management of its members, inspection and surveillance, collection of margin, etc. Very important thing. See, because many people are afraid of entering into derivative markets. So when they are entering into derivative market, they feel that there are risks which are associated with them. So what are the risks which they are associated with that? So how do you identify this risk, and how do you mitigate that risk? See, why most of the people choose futures are because they think that futures are risk-free commodity products. So when they are going for risk-free, that means there should not be any inevitable things which happens for them in the market. So what they do, they depend on the role of these clearinghouse agents, and these people stand in between the exchange and the counterparties, and they make sure that risk gets minimized for both the parties, that is buyers and sellers. Not only that, they do a lot of inspections and surveillance. So in order to see whether there is some malpractices or illegal way of any activity or fraudulent activities which are taking place. So in order to have a proper check on these things, they frequently do a lot of inspections on the credit worthiness of the person, genuinity. They will look for a lot of KYC things and all, and they want to establish whether the parties entering into the contract are genuine people or not, or if there is any transaction which is done through let us say cryptocurrency and all those things, right? Even that also they will verify the transaction background of all the buyers and sellers and all those things. That is called as inspections and surveillance. Surveillance is just to see whether these people have come only to do some mismatch in the market, or to do some malpractices in the market, or to create a temporary demand or something like that. See, that is surveillance. Surveillance is a 24 hours job what the exchange, this clearinghouse agents will be carrying out on the buyers and seller, or you can call it as co-parties to the contract. And collection of margin, I'll come back to this margin because it's a little bit of wider topic. So I'll just tell you about the margin, initial margin, what we discussed about. So at the time of entering into contract, it's your job to see that 5 to 10% of whatever the contract value is there, that needs to be deposited with the clearinghouse agent. That's what I told you. They make sure that this collection happens on time. So they make sure that they take the money, margin money, and collect the margin money at the time of entering into the contract. So margin money can be again of different type. Delivery margin is there, mark to market margin is there. See, all this lot of margin will come in the after the contracts are entered into, till the settlement process. So whatever the different margin comes at the time of settlement of the contract, they make sure that they collect it on time and accordingly deposit that money into the particular account, or transfer the benefits to the buyers and sellers, especially in terms of mark to margin. Okay, so who should be debited with loss, who should be credited with gains, all those things will be decided by, or will be done by this clearinghouse agent. So that is about margin collection role, what the clearinghouse agents do. The next one is it monitors net worth requirement of its members. Very important, because that talks about the credibility or credit worthiness of a person. So net worth is what shows the credit worthiness of a person. So it's the responsibility of the clearinghouse agents to monitor this credit worthiness of the parties entering into contract, and they keep on maintaining that vigil on these buyers and sellers, because tomorrow they should not face an embarrassing situation at the time of settlement of the contract. If a buyer or a seller, let us say, if a seller becomes insolvent, what happens? You see, there was a buyer who was ready to buy, and there was a seller who wanted to sell. So at the time of these type of transaction, this contract should have been settled. So at that point of time, if seller is not traceable, or if buyer becomes insolvent, so how to get this contract settled? Because it becomes the responsibility of clearinghouse agents to do all these things. So again, the job of clearinghouse agent will be at risk at that point of time. So they do always the net worth check or net worth requirement of its members are checked every now and then to check about the credit worthiness and financial feasibility of those people who are entering into the contract. So that is what it means. Then it ensures performance of every contract. It interposes itself between the two counter parties. Very important role. So they not only act as middlemen only for carrying out the contract, they even act as your friend and guide, philosopher, friend, guide, or whatever you call it as, right? So they will be helping you out in the furtherance of closing the deal, closing the settlements, or closing the contract itself. So they work with you, they align with you, they help you out in terms of understanding, or in terms of any gap, or in terms of creating awareness, or in terms of enhancing your knowledge. See, all these things. So they act as a philosopher, guide, or whatever you call it as, right? So they help you out in each and every step, and their objective is to see the contract gets honored on the day of expiration. So on the day of expiration of the contract, your contract should be honored. So in order to honor your contract, whatever steps they want to take, right, to ensure, okay, the safety of funds, the particular way of settlement as per the terms and condition, everything, keeping these things in mind, they settle the contract. So novation is the practice by which the exchange becomes the counterparty for all trade taking place under it. So what is novation? Novation is creating something new, okay, discovering something new. That is called as novation. So novation in the practice, what is that novation in the practice? Bringing new things in the practice, bringing new reforms in the practice. Okay, and who does this new reforms? That is done by clearinghouse agents. So they take the onus or ownership for ensuring that the deal between the buyers and seller gets amicably solved within the parameters of the terms and conditions of the contract. So because ultimately, whatever role, if the clearinghouse agent doesn't do properly, right, it's not the bad name for clearinghouse agent, it's a bad name for the exchange. Okay, they will say, I did the transaction with MCX exchange, they did not honor my contract properly on the day of contract, so I'm not interested. So ultimately they start blaming the exchange, not the clearinghouse agent, because clearinghouse agent's existence is only because of the exchange. So in macro level, exchange will be blamed, because no one will try to blame the clearinghouse agent, because it's an agency which is just created by an exchange to do help it out in clearing the transactions. So tomorrow, if something wrong happens, exchange should take the blame and not the clearinghouse agents. Okay, so that becomes that's what novation is, what the term they've used. What is this novation? Novation is something creating new, something which is new. So that new things will be implemented in the practice, so that they honor not only the buyers and sellers, but also add value to the exchange. Okay, so the number of settlement, the type of settlement, the time of settlement, the way of settlement. See, all these things, factors add up to the giving good credibility and goodwill to the exchange. So it becomes a responsibility of the clearinghouse agent to perform its duty accurately and according to the procedures laid out under the guidelines of SEBI. Okay, they need to do it. So next one, clearinghouses interpose between buyers and sellers as legal counterparty. This is also a very important thing because buyers and sellers will not be aware of a lot of legal things which are involved in the contract, terms and conditions of the contract. So a clearinghouse agent tries to educate buyers and sellers. So they give necessary legal related assistance, okay, law related assistance or legal related help in terms of understanding the terms and conditions of the contract, or in terms of bringing it with the standard procedures of the contract, all those things in the eyes of law. So that is very important. So tomorrow, whoever wants to trade with particular exchange, right, they can comfortably trade with that, because clearinghouse agents takes care of everything. So they draft the contract. That's what we discussed, right? So when the counterparties meet together, the first thing is they need to get registered with clearinghouse agents. That means they need to have a contract with clearinghouse agents. So that means clearinghouse agents are entering into contract with counterparties, and they make sure that whatever the terms are there, whatever the conditions are there, whatever the legal points are there in that contract, they make sure that they educate the people like buyers and sellers about the validity and about the legal aspects, whatever is there in the contract. So this is a very, very, very important role, especially when it comes to the question of carrying the legal framework to the counterparties. So most of the times there are some little bit of legal aspects which a common man, okay, or the common person who enters into trade will not be able to understand. So now there are at least a party to help you out to understand those things. So they are called as clearinghouse agents. So they help you to understand the legal obligations which are there and legal terminologies which are used in the contract, and make clear that you understand the significance and importance of the contract in legal matters. So that is one thing. Hence, the only risk faced by participant is of clearinghouse default. But normally this default has not taken place because they come under the legal surveillance. Okay, there is a surveillance on legal surveillance which is done by SEBI and also the exchanges on the clearinghouse agents. And defaulting by clearinghouse agents, I don't think it will happen, and it has not happened also, except for a few cases earlier which might have happened. But as of today, there are least chances of clearinghouse house becoming defaulters because they have been continuously monitored and surveyed by the statutory authorities and also through the regulatory authorities. So that question of default by clearinghouse agent, I don't think it's happening today anywhere. I don't have any examples to share with you on that. The new contracts on the first day of are assigned a base rate by the exchange. So, okay, this I'll come back to the transaction later on. So, next class I will be talking about all this transaction related things. Okay, hope this topic is getting cleared for you, because I'm repeating the same points again and again, so that you can at least, if you miss at one stage, you can get back it at another stage. Because virtual classroom is not equivalent to face-to-face interaction related type of classroom. Okay, it's very difficult to get adjusted to this type of environment, especially to learn something. If it is something like net meeting or something like that, you can easily understand. But for your daily business related thing, but to understand a topic like stock market or commodity exchange and all, or some mathematics or QT or something like that, it's very difficult to do through net meeting. Okay, this is only just if you are able to understand what I'm telling, then it's fine. Okay, but if you have any doubts or any queries, please be free to ask me, so that I can help you out on those things. So let us, because this is a very big topic and it's a very practical topic, so I'll be taking some more time in order to explain you in a very stage-by-stage manner, so that you understand the entire concept of how the exchange takes place in the commodity markets. So I'll meet you tomorrow. So I will schedule a session tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So we'll meet together tomorrow. Thank you. So any questions? If you have any questions, you can ask me.